So, who's your role model in this field?
Yeah. So initially, it was when I was working with the cryo-electron microscopy group. I had this professor. His name was Mark Stewart, and he was extremely intelligent and impressive person to look up to. The way he taught me about electron microscope really it etched into my brain. I can never forget his class or his teaching, and that really helped me in understanding my project as well when I worked with my own supervisor back then. And further along, now it's actually my supervisors themselves because of their work ethic and the way they approach me with my weekly meetings. And
Mhm.
that's very important because as a PhD student, you face a lot of issues in your day to day projects, and they are the ones who give you also shape your ideas in a way. I would say you have a lot of ideas and they shape it, and that actually I look up to it. It's really nice quality. Yeah.
That's nice. I mean, if you see your role model in your supervisor, because
Yeah.
it's very important how they treat you and also how we reciprocate that to them, right? Ultimately, it's about human connections.
Yes.
So it's nice that as a PhD student, we are being treated, I
Mm.
mean, equally, and they help us, and that really motivates a PhD student. That's what my personal take is. I don't
Yes.
know if other PhD students also think that way, but as far as what I have spoken with others, that's what I realize is that your environment where you're working in should be quite supportive.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mhm. So, what's a typical day of a PhD student like in your department, or what is your typical day?
Yeah, so I belong to the preclinical department. So my answer would be specific to the preclinical
Yes.
clinical team because clinical research students they have a different day. For the preclinical team, once we have our scan dates at the micropet, we go through like it's what we do is we make like a time schedule on the Excel sheet right
Mhm.
from the start of the project, right from ordering of the animals till the end, even your molecular based experiments. We try to put it on a spreadsheet and keep it for us because these are longitudinal projects basically. And on the scan day, we go, we set the animals for the scan based on in what way the tracer has to be injected. Basically, we set up everything, finish the scans, and if the animal has to wake up, then we have to go to another lab as well because you may have to treat them or perform behavior experiments on the same day or on another day, but another set of cohorts, for example. So we go to another lab, perform these, and then but if not, if it's a termination experiment, it's radioactive, the tracer what we add. So if we need to, for example, measure the radioactivity in the brain regions or the peripheral organs, we usually remove the organs immediately after the scan at the table, and then we run to another lab where you have the gamma counter and you measure radioactivity of organs. Yeah. So this is how it goes basically almost every time we have our scan dates. When we don't have scan dates, of course, we have to perform behavior studies or treatment studies and so on, prepare the animals for what you need, what your research question is.
Yeah.
Uh, and if you have a disease model, you may need to perform surgeries on the animal and also take care of the animal post-operative.
Mhm.
So this is how it goes.
Yeah, and also the normal maintenance of the animal, right? I mean,
Yes.
most of the
Mhm.
time it's the animal caretakers who are there who are doing this in the facility. But obviously, if the animal belongs to you in your study, then it becomes like our responsibility to take care of them.
Definitely. Always when people do animal studies, we have to perform or maintain a animal welfare record for one animal each. A record should be maintained for each animal. So that's how we do. We always either carry around the record and keep it in a particular place for the welfare, I don't know, inspectors or supervisors that check the animal. And everything has to be up to date of what you do. If you perform surgery on the animal, you write it. And then if you check the welfare the next day, that also goes into.
Okay. All right. Um, yeah, these are some, tiny things that somebody needs to know if they're planning to get into that in the PhD. Because I did take part in, not take part, but actually perform some of the studies which were animal based, like preclinical ones. But being a bachelor student, like being an undergrad student and doing all this is so different than being a PhD student who's literally taking care of everything from scratch. So it literally makes huge difference, and it's good to know from you guys that what you're doing exactly, and it is beneficial for those who want to enter into preclinical studies. So
yeah, it's very important to maintain one particular record of the entire project, what happens to the animal. And this goes for every animal that you do. So that's the most important thing for a start, I would say.
yes,
Yeah.
and along with this, I think maybe it will be beneficial if you tell us little bit about the licensing that you need to perform, these experiments on the animals, because many people don't know about this, and I think it's a good way to tell the new students because we hardly talk about these things,
Yeah.
which are so important and mandatory, right? So.
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell you. Yeah. So when you decide to take a PhD that involves animal studies, the first thing that you need to do is already in your master's, you need to start learning about the anatomy of the organism and also humans, because everything that you do in preclinical is actually translated to a clinical setting. So, firstly, know about anatomy. We have to prepare anatomy of all the systems in the body and pass the exam, anatomy exam. And after that, you need to check for animal license exam, what it's called in your particular university. In Netherlands, it's called Article 9 license. And so once you join your PhD, the first thing you need to do is enroll yourself for this Article 9 course, basically. It's an animal course, science course. And it's a very intense course. It has animal ethics, physiology, anatomy of animals, and also statistics involved, and so on. And you first pass the anatomy exam, then you are given a chance to participate in this animal license course. Once you pass the anatomy exam, and then you need to pass the animal science course, and then they will give you the a license. The license number varies country to country, from country to country. So yeah, that you have to check. But this is how the process goes. Once the PhD student gets the license, that's only when we are even allowed to order animals and handle animals. Handling is not allowed before your license. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with this. And I mean, this is necessary because the ethics part of it is so important. And I, in fact, made another video on this because I also underwent a lot of this, very strict ethic proposal writing. And we also have something called good clinical practices in all the clinical trial sector. So you have to like have so many modules that you need to actually gain the certificate for, and then you can perform these clinical trials. So, I mean, it goes both ways, that we have to have the knowledge of ethics for maybe preclinical or clinical studies. So, this is one of the very important aspects if you're planning to do research, especially in like on rodents or any type of animal model,
Yeah.
like complicated animal model
Yeah.
or human studies.
Yeah.
Not sure
No.
about cell culture. Probably another student who works on cell culture could guide us on this. But
Cell culture is also important here because, for example, in glioma studies in an animal model, which hopefully my proposal will get selected once I finish it. You really need to culture these cells. You need to know how to culture. So, yeah, it also comes under neuroscience if you want to inject glioma cells in a particular location or so on.
yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah, definitely. And apart from brain imaging, of course, you also can induce tumor in peripheral regions in the animal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you need to know cell culturing and then how to inject in a particular place.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's the reason you need to also know the anatomy of the animal. So, you can't inject it in by
Yeah.
mistake in another
Yeah.
region.
Yeah, yes, and
Yeah.
specifically when you're targeting um, a specific nerve or a specific region, you really have to be sure, because what we see on the atlas is so. I mean, it is. They have tried to depict it in a very accurate manner, but when
Yeah,
it comes to, like, performing all those stereotactic surgeries, we realize what on paper is so different than what we are seeing in the animal, and
definitely.
yeah.
And one thing I would also like to add is when you start performing animal experiments, it's always good to ask the animal welfare committee to give you a certain set of practice animals
Yes.
before you start your experiment. And that's how you can actually be precise once you start your experiments. Um, and also the anatomy atlas book that I wanted to show for students if they are interested is the neuroanatomy text and atlas
Yes.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
maybe you can show the lower part of it to show the author. Yeah. Yeah. It's
it's
by John H. Martin. Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
This is a extremely important book for neuroanatomy and the brain atlas basically. So that would really help. Apart from the anatomy of the general body, yeah, this is
Yeah.
more neuroanatomy. Yeah.
And there are like these Allen's Brain Atlas, and there are so many of these websites that really help. But I have seen that people use Allen's Brain Atlas a lot,
Okay.
and I personally, along with the lectures, studied neuroanatomy from Haynes.
Okay.
So maybe that'll be helpful. But yeah, there are so many different books. But
Yes. Yeah.
even this book is quite good. Yeah,
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
Martin. Yeah, yeah.
Martin. Yeah. Yeah. This is really good.
So much.
Um,
All right. So we've been talking a lot about the tips and tricks, which will come further on in the interview also. So let's like move on to a different sort of topic right now. So what sort of support do you seek from your friends and family who are not from the academic background?
yeah. So my friends right now who are present in Groningen after masters, they also are from a PhD background. So it's sometimes we need one another to spend some time in the evening for coffee, or even on the weekend to go to the sports center and play. So this is how we support one another. And with respect to family, they completely understand the gravity of the situation and how important it is and how it's helping me. So of course there are days when you feel really gray after experiments are done, either because it's been a long day or because the experiments didn't go as you had planned, and it definitely happens to everyone. And in those days it's really nice if you can call your family back home and just tell them about your situation, and they will definitely try to ease it for you. Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, talking really helps. Yeah.
talking really helps. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to tell us about how many places did you apply to before you got accepted to this PhD position?
Yeah, so apart from PhD, I also applied to industry in and around Groningen and Netherlands. But just freshly out of masters, when I competed with the locals, I had to actually know the Dutch language, so I didn't get through with the process. But for PhD, I think I applied to 4 or 5 parallelly along with this. The others were mostly related to protein and cryo-electron microscope studies. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just to tell people that they should have backup options, and at the same time, also, if they have failures, then they should not stop believing in themselves. So, just
Yeah,
wanted to
definitely.
include this question here so that to share with everyone that we all have our own shares of failures, but at the same time, success only comes when you have like enough failures. So, I mean,
Yes,
sounds
definitely.
cliche, but yet, I mean, this is the reality. So,
Yeah, once I received 3 rejections almost from the industry because they said the profile matches and everything, but you don't have the language.
language.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
so that was a bit sad. But once I received the mail that I was selected in this particular project, that was the best day. Then it really shapes your the way you are, and it's really nice when you get the positive reply.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, after
yeah.
so many rejections,
After
it feels good to being accepted somewhere, and probably if it's the dream project that you wanted to,
exactly.
get into, then yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And just let us know how was your PhD interview like. So, what was the process like? What sort of questions you were asked? Like, just to give an overview to the audience. So,
Yeah, sure. My PhD interview, I had 4 professors present, I would say, including the head of the department. And they basically asked me questions related to my master's training in the lab, the techniques that I had used, basically, they asked me in the projects. So I had taken with me my resume just to be confident, actually see and go through. And surprisingly, the professors also had a copy of my resume with them,
yes.
and that was nice. And I had prepared the previous weeks for the techniques that I had used in masters just to refresh, and why I had chosen to apply to that particular position and the motivation behind it. And yeah, these were also the questions that they had asked, but they also asked me some like psychological based work related questions, and probably tested how I answer for them. And it actually lasted for a very long time.
Long.
Um, and it was almost 2 hours.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, almost 2 hours, and but then it went well. It's just basically how you carry out yourself, because you were the one who performed your master thesis experiments, so you know the techniques already, and it's just. If you feel as though you are just teaching someone,
Yeah.
then I think it's going to be very easy to answer the questions in the interview. So they are anyway going to ask you what you know already, and that's something that you can be confident about. So yeah, the main point is to go through your master techniques well bit before your PhD interviews, I would say.
I mean, it's always a good thing to prepare yourself well
Yeah,
before. It could be in terms of the technical questions that they would ask you, because
yeah,
definitely they need somebody who has a scientific sound,
yeah,
I mean, career. but
Yeah.
at the same time they also look at not just the technical skills but how motivated you are, how passionate you are. I mean, this
Yeah.
is what I have realized by talking to others, and
Yeah.
also personally while giving, like, these PhD interviews. When you talk to these people, you realize what they want from you.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, I look
And
at
yeah.
a mix of both. Yes, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Even if you don't fit into the criteria of just one or two experimental methods that you don't know of, and when they ask you how you would approach this, you just
Yeah.
have to tell them that you are maybe a quick learner, or you would grasp the concept really well, or help other PhD students to get to know it. And then they would know that, okay, you make an effort to learn the technique, and then probably you would implement later.
Yeah, I
That's an
mean,
impression that you would make. You needn't say no, I don't know the technique. Yeah, you can just answer it in a different way, that you would be willing to learn
yes,
the technique or so.
very,
Yeah.
very important point, because I also agree with this, because often they want somebody who's willing to learn more,
Yeah.
because obviously they are taking a PhD student because they want them to learn more. They
Yes.
are not trying to take an expert.
Yeah.
Because if it is an expert, then what is it that they'll learn in their PhD? Because
Yeah.
PhD is not just about joining there as like a master student. So it's somewhere between. You're a student, but also at the same time you are transitioning into this academic field or industry. So you're trying to learn how to teach. You're trying to, I mean, expand your knowledge, but at
Yeah.
the same time you're learning how to ask these scientific questions, how to think in such a setting, how to thrive in the challenging environment. So it's
Yeah.
just a mix of so many different things. It's not just studying, like, maybe we can address this in the myths section, but this is how I always feel, is that everybody thinks that PhD is just like any other study. So it's not
Yeah.
just about taking books and reading them. No, it's not
Yeah.
just about that. It's more about how you are surviving in this challenging environment where you meet different people, when you have to, in fact, organize a lot of things, when you
Yeah.
need to coordinate between people, as you mentioned about the scanning days. So it's a lot about coordination, organizing, and yeah, it just comes down to very many different things. So not just
Exactly.
opening books, learning a concept, and giving an exam. No, not
Yeah,
at all.
it's all about implementing what you know and what you are also willing to learn and implement.
Yeah.
Because when you enter PhD for the first time, you don't really know everything in your project. It's a learning curve. You do know a few things from your masters, you carry it forward, but to the PhD position that you're applying to, even they know actually that you don't know all the aspects. That's how they test you in the interview, to see how you answer. If you are a person who's willing to learn the particular techniques, and then also be a team player, how you
Mhm.
coordinate and everything. Yeah. They also ask you group team related questions and so on.
Yes, and
Yeah.
how you perform in stressful situations.
Yeah.
Because I remember once one of the interviewers asked me that if like somebody's stuck at the scanner, or and nobody's around, what you're gonna do. So like things like this, they will ask you that when you're actually pushed hardest, and when you
Yeah.
don't have any other option left, how are you going to react? Are you going to go under a panic attack and
Yeah.
say, I don't know? Or you will think of something that you could do in that urgent situation. So
Yeah.
it's literally that they want to know you
Yes.
more as a person, not as like, they're not hiring robots there. So
Yeah, because they have to work with you for 4 years. That's also very important in the interview. It's not just you who is selecting the lab, it's the supervisors who are supposed to work with you as well. So it's not just subject related interview. It is it's a quite more than that. There's a psychological evaluation is also involved in it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right.
Okay.
Interesting discussion about this one. So